There is a fifth dimension, beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone.
When I sleep, I dream. I don't want to dream. Something happened out there in the desert that night during that mission, and it's not what we thought it was, and it happened on my watch.
We've been down this road with you before, yes?
No, sir. Not this road.
Congressman Shaw!
Sergeant Shaw, you ever dream about Kuwait?
Captain Marco!
How much do you actually know about your friend?
I served under him. He was a good man.
That's what the neighbors always say about serial killers.
Somebody put an implant inside me. I got a good feeling they put one in you, too.
You need to get help, Ben.
I'm not crazy, Shaw.
Raymond, this is J.B. Johnston of Manchurian Global.
We're strong supporters.
At a flick of a switch, we can adjust character, change personality.
These are not supposed to exist.
Raymond Prentice Shaw. Listen.
This is a coup. This is rich people funding bad science to put a sleeper in the White House.
Among the shareholders in Manchurian Global, you would find former presidents, supposed kings.
Yeah, I get it. They're big. They're huge.
And you bring me rumors and conjecture.
I started with nightmares, rumors, conjectures. That's a giant leap forward. Somebody got into our heads. Neurons got exposed and circuits got rewired. I think you should leave.
What are you doing?
I gotta find out what's gonna happen, where it's gonna happen.
He's delusional.
So watch where you going!
You swore to me that this was fail-safe. No leaks, no glitches. I will do whatever is necessary to protect my son.
We're gonna stop this and take them out. You don't think they factored you in?
Hello, Captain. Do you remember me?
Believe me. Help me. Or shoot me.
Saying transhumanism is the moral thing to do, when in fact it is the exact opposite, and the very thing the fallen angels and the Nephilim did in the days of Noah. All of these people believe in this delusion and are influenced because of their denial of God. The same is true with the ancient alien theorist. God sends a deluding influence so they will believe what is false, because they delight in their own evil will, as explained in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2.
The idea around what we are doing in the genetics right now of humans, animals, plants, all seems to be an all-out assault on God's creative genius that goes back to that Genesis prophecy about the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman being set at odds one toward each other. And this is why, of course, Pandemonium's Engine, why we gathered all of these scholars to address the various aspects of this issue, because in my opinion, nothing could be more prophetic. All of the Bible is all about genetics, the purity of genetics, and a war over genetics. Then it's a Mephistophelian bargain. It's a deal with the devil. It's back to why we named the book Pandemonium's Engine, that deal that was struck in Paradise Lost. Ye shall be as gods, is whispered in the ears of humanity. And but where does it take us now? I think we're seeing a repeat of ancient science.
Dr. Jacques Vallée has addressed the United Nations on UFOs and was the model for the Lacombe character in Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He is the author of 8 books about UFOs and has been widely recognized as the premier researcher in ufology. In his book, Messengers of Deception, he says, an impressive comparison can be made between UFO occupants and the popular conception of demons. In his book, Confrontations, he writes, "The medical examinations to which abductees are said to be subjected, often accompanied by sadistic sexual manipulation, is reminiscent of the medieval tales of encounters with demons."
Jacques Vallée, at least at that time when he wrote that book, was an agnostic. Interesting that he comes to basically the same conclusions I do as a Christian from my research. And he said about UFOs, they're real, but they're not physical. They're messengers of deception. And this was based on his research of about 20 years. In Close Encounters of the Third Kind, that first film that came out about UFOs, the house that the mother and little boy were living in, you know, the toys began running around and screws unscrewing in the presence of UFOs. What the film was saying was the same people that run UFOs run haunted houses. And I would say that's absolutely true.
John Keel was a world-renowned expert with unidentified flying objects and has written numerous articles and books on the subject. A self-described agnostic, he made this statement: "Thousands of books have been written on the subject of demonology, which is the ancient and scholarly study of monsters and demons. The manifestations and occurrences described in this literature are identical to the UFO phenomenon. Victims of demonic possession suffer from the same medical and emotional symptoms as the UFO contactees.
They have been stripped of their apparel. They go naked. And they have horrible faces.
It's just that the face is the eyes. They look horrible.
And the eyes, the horrible look, had that information that you just told me?
I think we are looking at a catastrophic situation. I think we are looking at a disaster. We are seeing a unified program here with these beings, a program of physiological exploitation by one species of another. And I know this sounds absolutely insane. We're looking at a colonization program in some way.
Phenomenon was a real phenomenon. This was something that was actually happening to these people.
I was like paralyzed.
What you call like a little being, but he was luminescent, like light.
The big bulbous head, the gray skin. What I saw was a typical gray. Big black eyes.
2.5, 3 feet tall.
They all were dealing with something that was very unusual from a human perspective. This was something I felt that we needed an answer to, because at this point in time there were no answers.
Now, there was a direct correlation between the experiment, the DNA experiment now, of giants to little gray aliens. They are actually related. We look at what the Bible says. It happened once, the giants, and then the flood. Well, then the giants came back, didn't they? Satan wasn't about to let that go. And ever since the mid-80s now, the 1980s, we've had the little gray aliens. At that point, we had, I don't know how many different types of aliens. We had red one, green one, blue one, black one, some with scales, some with human skin, some with long hair, short hair, eyes, short eyes, name it, we had it. Something strange happened in the mid-80s. We have one common alien now, don't we? The little grays. Big bulging eye, gray skin, no hair, 4.5 feet tall, skinny little dudes. Yeah, why? Why is it we only have them now? Did all the other so-called alien nations decide to just pack up their bags and leave? Or is something else going on here that we're not looking at? And trust me, that is the answer. We're not looking at this right. Because, as I said, there's a direct relationship between the gray aliens and those ancient giants.
There's a spike in UFO sightings. We're getting more than ever before. There's a whole disclosure movement where people are saying they're already here. The governments of the UK, The French government, Belgium, the Germans, the Japanese, Brazil, and Mexico all have gone on the record stating unequivocally that this phenomena is real. And so you get this sort of deer in the headlight, people, oh, those little gray guys are back again, Bob. That's right, Ted. You get that kind of chuckle stuff on the news. But what's happening is we need a real serious dialogue because the phenomena is real, it's burgeoning, and it's not going away. And just the fact that the governments in the countries that I named a minute ago have already disclosed that the phenomena is real should be enough to wake up the church. But most of the church sits with its head in the sand and plays church. We're told that Satan comes with all signs and lying wonders. We're told by Jesus, unless those days were shortened, no flesh would survive. We're told by Jesus again, let no one deceive you, right? That even the elect would be deceived if that were possible. Why is it that we can't look at those passages of Scripture and begin to take them seriously and understand that we are in the window of time where all this is not going to happen, but it's manifesting now?
I've met now hundreds of people who claim they've been abducted by aliens. There are events that you cannot explain naturalistically. I mean, ridiculously, the most common mistaken UFO is the planet Venus, believe it or not. 27% of all sightings are the planet Venus, and it just sits there in the sky. So it shows you how people interpret things wrong. But we see craft moving on radar at incredible speeds. They fly into one another and become one object and go off in another direction. They defy the laws of physics.
Is preached from a series of channelers who believe they are in communication with extraterrestrial spirits from other planets and galaxies. In the documentary UFOs and Channeling, the late actor Telly Savalas reveals that the purpose of channeling these alien entities is entirely consistent with the purpose of the New Thought New Age movement, to change the thinking of mankind.
Tonight, we're going to show you some film that may change the way you think about life. Change the way you think about life.
Next, we are introduced to a woman who channels a spirit, calling itself Leah.
Hello, Philip. How are you today?
Very good, Leah. How are you?
Very fine, thank you. So, what is it that you wanted to know?
Where are you from?
I'm from Venus.
I don't think anybody's going to believe that you or anybody else could be from Venus. Could you explain to us how you could be when everybody knows it's uninhabitable?
They think it's uninhabitable because it is not inhabitable by physical life forms. We have bodies of light.
While Leah rambles on with fantastical ideas, she soon compels the audience toward global unity, a message found throughout the New Age movement.
And what occurs here on this planet will affect the rest of the universe. Can you, with all of your different ideas, all of your different races, come together as one planet and one people? We have dedicated millennia upon millennia to this idea. The earlier experiments with Pan and Lemuria and Atlantis were not successful. But this one will be.
So when I started thinking about this scripture right here, it says, okay, because people would rather follow the lawless one, the man of sin, the Antichrist, the beast, whose number is 666. And because people don't have a love of the truth, God sends them a powerful delusion. So is the spinning heliocentric globular Copernican Earth model that delusion, or at least a big part of it? Well, when you start looking into this thing, in the previous segment, I showed you Doug Hamp's take on the word chug, or hug, or however you pronounce it, the word for circle in Isaiah 40:22. And there are others out there who believe it's talking about the circle of the Earth's orbital plane. So when I was hearing those arguments, I decided to punch up, well, what is the speed at which the Earth is allegedly going around the sun? And I saw this little graphic right here. I was looking it up on my phone. This is a screen capture off my phone. I just put speed Earth revolves around sun in a Google search, and this is what came up, that it is going at a speed of about 18.5 miles per second. Well, that's interesting. 18.5 miles per second. That's pretty fast. Well, when you multiply that out times 60 seconds times 60 minutes, you end up with 66,600 miles per hour. Huh. And then you start looking into the curvature math. We've talked about that before. Lots of speakers have talked about that. Lots of YouTubers, everybody out there is doing tests, is looking at this math. 8 inches per mile squared. Well, 8 inches just so happens to be 0.666 of a foot. And 10 miles on the curvature math is 66.666 feet. 100 miles, 6,666.666 feet. Are you starting to see a pattern here? They say the Earth is at a tilt of 23.4 degrees. Well, 23.4 off the center. If you draw an L shape, 90-degree angle, subtract 23.4. Well, 90 subtract 23.4 is 66.6. Is it just a coincidence that so many of the various attributes of this spinning globular Earth just so happen to equate to, in various ways, the number 666? Oh, and of course we have, the magic pill for everything, right, is gravity. The answer for everything is gravity. And the theory of gravity, of course, is usually assigned to Isaac Newton, who just so happened to get bonked on the head with an apple and came up with this theory in the year 1666. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's just unbelievable. And there are many people out there, he knew the Bible. He was a Christian. Well, look, the devil knows the Bible too. This guy was a occultist, an alchemist, a Freemason. There are lots of books written about what he was into. Yeah. So just because he knew the Bible, that doesn't impress me. I'm sorry. He was into some pretty dark arts. And then there's this interesting little piece of trivia. This was from Bob Nodell's presentation. I just added this into my presentation because after I saw it in his, I was like, ooh, that's interesting. Talking about Polaris. And I haven't tried to vet this myself. I'm just repeating what was said in his presentation so somebody else can look and see if this is in fact true if they want to. I just found it interesting. He was saying that NASA and modern astronomy say Polaris, the North Polar Star, is somewhere between 323 and 434 light years away, or about 2 quadrillion miles away from us. And he looks at the difference, and it just so happens to come up to 666 trillion miles. Interesting. And there's this other guy who runs a website called godtype.com. Now, he does not believe in flat Earth. He's a globe earther. But he posted this graphic that he had created, I guess, on a few posts on my Facebook page. It has this, which linked back to an article he had written. They had this and a few other graphics that also, interestingly enough, kept popping up with the number 666, for various locations on Antarctica. For instance, you have 6,660, I believe these are nautical miles, to the Vatican obelisk, and from another location at the edge of Antarctica to Jerusalem, 6,660 nautical miles, and another location, 6,660 nautical miles to the Washington obelisk, which is an obelisk is a representation of the phallus of Osiris, again going back to Nimrod and the beast system 666. So, 666 is like all over this globular Earth, spinning globular Earth Copernican model. I can't help but look at that and say, perhaps this is we're not just looking at coincidence here. Perhaps this is directly associated to the beast and his system. And when I started to look at the timeline of events, I found it's rather peculiar. And just for the sake of time, I've shortened it to a few key points. There are certainly lots more that we could address. But beginning in 1908 AM, or year since creation, we find that was when Nimrod was born. And I've got timeline charts that show all that, how I came to that conclusion within my Babylon Rising and actually my Yahuwah Triangle series. So you can look all that up online. All that stuff's out there. Nimrod's born in 1908, year since creation. Well, in 1908 AD, or year of our Lord, year since Yeshua, year since Jesus Christ, Ernest Shackleton boarded a ship called the Nimrod and headed down to Antarctica on what was called the Nimrod Expedition. You can read up all about that. Just do a Google search on it. This is the Wikipedia entry on it. And the only reason I found out about this was I was actually poking around on Google Earth in Antarctica. I think it's in the Ross Ice Shelf area. And, just kind of looking around, and, how Google Earth, they have the little icons that you could click on, and it pops up pictures, photographs that people have taken in those locations. Well, it just happened, my mouse went over one, and it said the Nimrod Hut. I'm like, the Nimrod Hut? What? So I click on that, and it zoomed in. They actually had a 360 kind of panorama deal you can zoom in on, and it, opens up, and you can see that whole area. And sure enough, Shackleton went down there on the Nimrod expedition on a ship called the Nimrod, and they set up a Nimrod Hut in Antarctica. Yeah. So, why is that interesting to me? Well, Scripture talks about Enoch was not, for God took him. Enoch was taken off this plane of existence early, without having to die. And in the Genesis account, that's about all we get. Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Okay. Well, in Joshua chapter 3, verse 38, it says that he disappeared in a place that was full of snow and ice. So Enoch ascended from a place filled with snow? Is that the edge of the earth? Is that the end of the world? Well, I mean, one of the arguments people say, if the earth is flat, people are going to fall off the edge. No, just Google coastline of Antarctica, and you're going to see lots of pictures like this showing really high, 200-300 foot ice walls. And of course, it only increases in altitude from there, the further inland you go. A place of snow and ice. Could that have been, in a pre-flood scenario? Did he have a way to get to the outer edge and get out from under the dome? Is there if there are windows in heaven, are there doorways too? I don't know. I just find it rather interesting, that Enoch disappeared in a place of snow and ice. Nimrod decided he wanted to attack God. His plan was actually to kill God, and he was going to do so by going up to build a tall tower to apparently try to break his way into one of the windows of heaven. So Nimrod, sometime after he was, obviously born in 1908, I think it was about 40 years later or something like that, when he got this bright idea and started working on this structure to go up to get into heaven. Could it be that, okay, that didn't work out? We know the biblical account of that in Genesis chapter 11. So could it be in 1908 AD they decided to go out to see if they could find another way? Perhaps the entrance that Enoch found? Certainly speculation, pure speculation on my part, but it's one of those things that make you go, So after Shackleton's deal, more Antarctic expeditions follow. After World War II, the nations, especially Germany, Russia, and the United States, become like literally obsessed with Antarctica. All of a sudden, of course, the official story is that, Nazis went down there after the war. So, okay, fine. But why were they going down there in the first place? Why were they so obsessed with Antarctica? I mean, geographically speaking, look at where Germany is on the globe. Why are they all of a sudden so obsessed with Antarctica? Now, they were into the esoteric. They were into, all kinds of ancient Gnostic and various religious texts and the occult and things like that. Lots of people have done research on that. You can look into all that. But for whatever reason, all of a sudden, all these people, these big, heavy players, the big players on the map, specifically Germany, Russia, and the United States, become obsessed with Antarctica. And for our side of it, we have 1946 and 47, enter Admiral Byrd. Now, this guy had previously, I believe in the 20s, had gone up to the North Pole and came back talking about finding an entrance to inner Earth, a hole in the north that he supposedly flew into and saw the inside of the earth, flew into Agartha, inner earth, hollow earth. And I had done a lot of research on that previously for some of the other things that I was working on. And so when I saw Mark Sargent's Flat Earth Clues Part 2, The Bird Wall, I'd already been pretty primed. I was a little bit up on Admiral Byrd, but specifically on his journeys to the north. And when he spent the rest of his life after that going to the south, you start to think, well, if there's a hole in the north, presumably maybe he was going to see if there was a hole in the south too. And I believe actually the official story is he was tasked with going down there with a whole fleet of ships to try to figure out what's going on with the Nazis. But could it be that there was something else going on down there? It gets really strange when you start looking into this stuff. Then eventually we get to 1955-56 with Operation Deep Freeze, and that's where things get really interesting, because after Operation High Jump, Byrd got on national television, started talking about Antarctica. This place is amazing, it's great, all these natural resources and all that stuff, and this is, a big reason why a lot of the other countries started going down there, was because of what, they had found, I guess, in their initial investigations. But when you get to Operation Deep Freeze, you got all these nations going down there to check things out. And then all of a sudden, everybody's like, whoa, they pull out of there. And they immediately start working on this thing called the Antarctic Treaty, which we'll get to shortly. Shortly after that, we have Sputnik. The Russians put up, the first artificial satellite to allegedly orbit the Earth. That was a huge accomplishment. For that time, that was big news back then. And all of a sudden now, we're in this Cold War with Russia. The United States, we gotta catch up. I mean, this is dangerous. If they can get stuff up there, then they can bomb us and what have you. And then we have 1958 and the founding of NASA and DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, where all these black budget projects to create super soldiers and stuff. So you have, just look at this, if you can, with a conspiratorial mindset. The timeline is rather peculiar, put it that way. So let's look at the founding of NASA, shall we? It's no secret that NASA was largely founded based on Project Paperclip, where more than 1,600 Nazis escaped the judgment that they deserved and found refuge in the United States, many becoming founding members of NASA. And of course, at the same time, you have DARPA being created. And you have Freemasons at the highest levels of NASA running the show. So, yeah, lots of interesting things. It gets even more interesting when you go a little bit further back, just by way of a setup here, and look at this character right here, Aleister Crowley. He's out there in January through March of 1918 doing a series of magical experiments called the Emelantra workings, in which he is said to have opened a portal to another dimension, allowing an entity, I believe a demon, named Lamb, to enter through it. Now, this is the drawing that he made in 1918 of this character that he apparently had some interaction with. If you look at this picture, it's curiously similar to something we might call an alien gray today in pop culture. So, it doesn't take a whole lot of research on this character to realize he was into some really, really dark stuff. So why did I bring this up? This is, 1918 timeframe. Well, you have this character who's very much a part of the early space program, Jack Parsons, who was basically a disciple, practically an heir apparent to Crowley and all of his activities. Well, supposedly, Crowley's portal was further enlarged by Jet Propulsion Laboratory founder and rocket fuel scientist Jack Parsons. Okay, this is the guy who was one of the founding members of JPL. It was a big part of NASA and the space program. And he's out there with Scientology and Dianetics founder L. Ron Hubbard in March of 1946 at a location that later became known as Area 51. They're doing all kinds of ceremonial sex magic. They called it the Babylon working. And it's very similar to the Emelantra working, based on ceremonial sex magic. But unlike Crowley, however, they were not as adept at opening and closing portals, and theirs apparently stayed open. And the modern UFO era began 1 year later, in 1947, the same year Crowley died. So, this is all going on about the same time you've got Admiral Byrd going down there for Operation High Jump. And a decade later, we got the founding of NASA. And these are the characters, okay, Freemasons, Nazis, and occultists creating the space program. And meanwhile, back in 1947, we have a massive, all of a sudden, this surge of UFO sightings and things of that nature. You know, UFOs are entering pop culture. You had the Foo Fighters and stuff that was going on in World War II. Many people reported the Foo Fighters, you know, these glowing orbs that would show up, you know, in the middle of dogfights and whatnot. And of course, we have the Roswell crash. And then in the following years, we have all these alleged cases of alien abductions. Now, the following clip is from one of the episodes of Ancient Aliens, talking about sort of the beginning of the modern alien abduction phenomena.
Modern accounts of sexual encounters with aliens date back to 1957, when a Brazilian farmer claimed he was taken on board a ship and coerced into having sex with a strange-looking blonde female with large eyes.
One of the most famous and earliest of the modern extraterrestrial abduction reports is the 1957 case of Antonio Villas-Boas in Brazil. And he claimed that a flying saucer landed in his remote farm. He was taken aboard. While he was there, he had a sexual encounter with this extraterrestrial woman.
That's one of the first abduction cases, and most interesting because it preceded all the others and wasn't well known until years afterwards. So you can't say that Antonio Villas-Boas got these ideas by reading pulp literature.
A few years later, in 1961, Betty and Barney Hill of Lancaster, New Hampshire, reported a famous abduction incident where they were placed naked on examination tables and probed by what they described as gray aliens who extracted eggs and sperm samples.
So, you got Sputnik in 57, and you got the beginning of the modern UFO alien abduction scenarios also beginning in 57, and all of a sudden in 58, we were creating, you know, a space program and a Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, you know, black budget government organization here, all happening around the same time. Then from 59 to 61, again, after everybody goes down there for Operation Deep Freeze, something happens, they see something, they do something. I don't know what the case, you know, whatever they saw or encountered down there made them pull out of there and decide to draft up this thing that was signed and put into place between 59 and 61. And then right after all that, all of a sudden, the United States and Russia start launching high-altitude nuclear bombs into the sky, and we labeled our activity Operation Fishbowl, which was part of Project Dominic. And in 1958 through 1972, we have NASA's Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo programs. So let's look at that a little bit. You know, this is the Antarctic Treaty in a room shaped like a uncapped pyramid. Now, it looks like, at least from the flat earther perspective, that probably during Operation Deep Freeze, they may have found the edge of the dome, presumably anywhere from 800 to 1,200 miles inland from the coast. Then everybody pulls out, signs this treaty, says nobody can go back except under the express guidelines of the international community that signed the treaty. So then all of a sudden the United States and Russia engaged in these high-altitude nuclear tests, and the United States calls theirs Operation Dominic, within which we have Operation Fishbowl. Now, hold that thought. This is all happening. If you go and look on the Operation Dominic entry, you see the different dates. We're 1962. This is the early part of 1962. We're talking May. I mean, look at all these bombs going off. 25 April.
This is expected. The communications link we have through satellites to Orion is momentarily lost, but Orion continues to receive and process data. Its computers can handle 480 million instructions per second. Imagine you are traveling with Orion as the flight test continues. One orbit completed. Time to go. The upper stage of the rocket fires again. Like the setup for a roller coaster ride, this is the big climb we've been waiting for. We are headed 3,600 miles above Earth, 15 times higher from the planet than the International Space Station. As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation. Radiation like this could harm the guidance systems, onboard computers, or other electronics on Orion. Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice, once up and once back. But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space. For this flight, it's time to head home.
Other than the alleged Apollo trips, all other manned spacecraft have stayed below the belts. These belts do not officially begin until an altitude of 1,000 miles is reached. But when one space shuttle crew was brave enough to go nearly 400 miles above the Earth, they started to experience some unusual effects. They reported seeing shooting stars, which were a result of the radiation hitting the retinas of their eyes.
And if I'd have landed 20 feet behind where I landed, we'd have landed right smack in that crater.
When interviewed, Alan Bean of Apollo 12 initially stated that he had not gone through the belts and did not observe any effects caused by them.
Any ill effects from the Van Allen radiation belts?
No. Now, I'm not sure we went far enough out to encounter the Van Allen radiation belt. Maybe we did.
When it was pointed out that the flight pattern took him through the belts, he changed his story.
The belts are 1,000 miles to 25,000 miles above the Earth.
Then we went right out through them.
No effects on your cells?
We didn't even know it. I don't think anybody, well, maybe somebody said you went through the radiation belt, but we didn't feel it inside, and we didn't get any, added radiation.
The space shuttle went to 365 miles a few years ago because I worked in news. I saw CNN. They said that the radiation belts surrounding Earth are more dangerous than previously believed because the astronauts saw shooting stars with their eyes closed just when they got within 600.
Radiation belt. We saw shooting stars, but they're not shooting stars with your eyes closed, although they look like it. If you're out in space beyond the Van Allen belt,
we must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
And probably within the Van Allen belt, and close your eyes and just pay attention. You don't notice it unless you pay attention. Then all of a sudden you'll see a little flash like a shooting star, except it's like that. There goes one this way. Then one just blossoms. And then not that fast. Maybe you wait 3 minutes or 2 minutes and one goes whoosh. And what's happening is cosmic rays are hitting the back of your eye and exciting those sensors in the back of your eye. So that's what you see. And they got high enough apparently to close them. My guess is in Earth orbit, if you closed your eyes and just paid attention, that you would see them.
The first time they were seen was when they went to 365 miles.
Yes.
That's 650 miles below. Why don't you just put the end to the record in the argument and put your hand on the Bible, swear to God you walked on the moon.
Mr. Seibel, knowing you, that's probably a fake Bible.
Well, you're talking to the wrong guy. Why don't you talk to the administrator at NASA? We're passengers. We're guys going on a flight.
Of course, I don't hit people, but you're going to be on the deck unless you get
I'm heading out. I appreciate it.
And get the hell out of my house.
Well, take your stuff and get the fuck out. Why don't you quote me and say it's bullshit?
I mean, the shadows in Iran, I don't give a damn about all that shit.
You're the one who said you walked on the moon when you didn't. Calling the kettle black, if I ever thought of it. Saying I misrepresented myself.
Away from me.
You're a coward and a liar and a thief.
You want me to knock you in the head?
Well, I want you to swear to God on the Bible that you walked on the moon.
Okay.
If you walked on the moon, we're given the opportunity to swear to God that you walked on the moon.
I'm going to give you the opportunity to get the hell knocked out of you if you don't leave me alone.
Watching them lie through their teeth, carrying on a hoax that is so outrageous that they're beyond human. They couldn't cover it up. They were just too human.
Exactly. You can see on Neil Armstrong particularly, he doesn't want to lie. This guy just doesn't want to lie. No. He's looking down. He just doesn't want to say anything. This is why he didn't give any interviews for the rest of his life.
Look at that. Please do look at that, folks. YouTube video of the first Apollo crew to come back at press conference. It's really embarrassing. I mean, it's just embarrassing. The lie was so big that they really couldn't fake it that well. It was too much for them.
The interviewer asked the woman to exchange spirits and to channel another spirit that calls itself the Tibetan. Tibet is an often referred to hotspot for New Age empowerment. Hitler's Nazi occultists went to Tibet thinking to find their ancient Aryan ancestors. Listen carefully to the Tibetan's message as he refers to the great I Am, the name God reveals in the Bible to describe himself.
I am the Tibetan, and I have come during this time continuum to discuss with you the idea of the only question in the universe. And that question is, what is? And the answer is, I am. For all things that are created, that were created, that shall be created, fall under the question, what is? And you, each and every one of you, are that answer, and that answer is I am. I am is also the name of the creator of this universe. That is all. I relinquish control to the entity, Leah.
As the entity Leah returns, she confirms the You Are God message and refers to the new race that will arise through the New Age movement. Most New Agers today do not realize that this new race is identical to the master race prophesied by Adolf Hitler, a race of so-called supermen who will be their own gods, having rejected the one true God of the Bible.
This new age is where there will be a race on this planet and throughout all galaxies. And the name of that race will be peace. It's been wonderful spending some time with you. As you take this little piece of information with you, know that you are never alone. You are all connected to the creative source of this universe. And nothing can stop that flow except your denial that you are God.
To understand the New World Order and the New Age worldview, we must go back into history and examine its origins. But first we must define our terms. By New Age, I am speaking about a worldview that has many facets and components, such as astrological and zodiacal beliefs in the New Age concept, channeling higher powers to achieve knowledge, meditation, the belief that all is one, or forms of monism, the belief that we can attain godhood, esotericism, or in other words, reinterpreting ancient texts to find hidden meanings and unify all religious belief into one, the belief that we need a one-world system for the coming age of Aquarius. By New World Order, I am talking about a political agenda to create a one-world system, one-world government, one-world economy, unity of humanity into one organism, control over humanity, and submission of the masses.
But today, the largest countries of the world have agreed a global plan for recovery and reform. I think a new world order is emerging, and with it the foundations of a new and progressive era of international cooperation.
To understand what is going on today with respect to the New World Order and the New Age movement, we must have recourse to the 19th century organization called the Theosophical Society. This organization in particular, among others, is largely responsible for the modern New Age movement and the political doctrine known as the New World Order. The founder of this organization was a woman named Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. Born August 12, 1831, Helena Blavatsky was very interested early in her life in the supernatural and the mythological. From 1848 to 1858, Blavatsky would travel the world to ascertain an understanding of the religious traditions of the world. She claimed to have traveled to South America, Egypt, Canada, France, Greece, Mexico, Tibet, India, Germany, and England during this time. It is said that during this travel she learned many mysteries, secrets, and occult knowledge from every walk of life. With all of this new esoteric information in her mind, she moved to New York in 1873. Then in 1875, she formed an occult organization called the Theosophical Society. She founded this society with two men, Colonel Henry Steele Olcott and William Quan Judge. According to Olcott, Theosophy already had thousands of members and branches all over the world by 1885. After New York, Blavatsky and Olcott established the Theosophical headquarters in India, and the membership roster grew increasingly as time went on. Blavatsky's influence came from her writings. Her first book was entitled Isis Unveiled, published in 1877. She started a magazine in 1887 called Lucifer Magazine. Her principal work, The Secret Doctrine, was then published in 1888. She then wrote The Key to Theosophy and The Voice of Silence. These works are now famous, and contained in these writings are the doctrines that helped mold the New Age movement to what it is today. It is said that part of Blavatsky's book, The Secret Doctrine, was channeled to her through an ascended master or highly evolved being called Kuthumi, who spoke to her. Belief in these ascended masters who communicate to humanity is very crucial when studying the New Age.
We are, of course, the Pleiadians, and as we've said, it is our pleasure to be here at this time to communicate with you, to give you an opportunity to understand our energy and who we are. This one that speaks through us, we call her our vehicle. She has given you an opportunity to listen to her interpretation of what she feels is taking place as a result of our contact with her.
Allow us to communicate an idea to you, once again, that we would like to call the span. This involves the idea of a span of time and timing that is now upcoming on your planet.
Although many direct experiences with these entities do seem to entail dread and negativity, there are plenty of accounts of positive experiences. Most of these experiences are found within the New Age movement, where the experiences are not direct physical contact, but rather spiritual through a process called channeling. This is where the person willingly invites entities who are referred to as the higher self, ascended masters, higher spiritual beings, extraterrestrial entities who are communicating telepathically, entities of higher densities, and a number of other alleged beings who are more evolved than human beings. Most of the quotes we've looked at in an earlier section of the ancient mystery schools and theosophy were all channeled information. In the case of Helena Blavatsky, the entity she channeled was named Kuthumi and El Morya, both of whom were considered ascended masters from northern India and Tibet. Alice Bailey channeled the entity Dejwal Khul, also considered an ascended master. Today there are several New Age teachers who claim to get their information from a source of a higher spiritual origin.
According to the New Agers, Theosophists, as well as many elitists and Freemasons, there exists a group of highly evolved men and women called the Masters of Wisdom. These powerful groups claim that Buddha, Krishna, Muhammad, and Jesus were all masters of wisdom, and that a being named Maitreya is the leader of these beings, who in turn is subject to the true leader, Sanat Kumara. New Age Theosophist Dane Rudhar concedes that the leader of the Masters, Sanat Kumara, is in fact Satan, according to the esotericists. Quote, Satan is an anagram for Sanat Kumara, who in the esoteric philosophy of India is the Promethean being who gave mankind the fire of self-conscious and independent individual selfhood, unquote. John Michael Greer in the New Encyclopedia of the Occult notes, quote, Satan has a possible echo in theosophic lore, where the Lord of the world, the spiritual ruler of the earth, and the head of the Great White Lodge is Sanat Kumara, a lord of the flame who descended to earth from Venus in a fiery chariot some 6 million years ago, unquote. Helena Blavatsky taught her students that it is actually Satan who is God, the Messiah, and that Jehovah is the evil one. She stated, quote, It is but natural, even from the dead letter standpoint, to view Satan, the serpent of Genesis, as the real creator and benefactor, the father of spiritual mankind. For it is he who was the harborer of light, bright radiant Lucifer, who opened the eyes of the automation created by Jehovah, as alleged, and he who was the first to whisper, In the day ye eat thereof, ye shall be as Elohim, knowing good and evil, can only be regarded in the light of a savior, an adversary to Jehovah, the personating spirit. He still remains in esoteric truth, the ever-loving messenger, the angel, the seraphim and cherubim, who both knew well and loved still more, and who conferred on us spiritual instead of physical immortality. The theosophist H. Alexander Fusel seeks to deify Satan, quote, Satan, then, was originally a divine being destined to carry light and life to the netherworlds. He stands for the gift of free will and self-conscious mind to man, a power which at once seduces and uplifts man, for with free will comes the power to go astray. Satan is therefore man's teacher.
This is Edward Alexander Crowley, also known as Aleister Crowley. He styled himself the wickedest man in the world. He believed himself to be the great beast, and he changed his name to Aleister Crowley, so it would add up in both English, Hebrew, and Greek Kabbalah as 666. In 1904, Crowley had a communication with an extraterrestrial being named Iwas. And this being, through his wife, kind of a channeling type operation, brought forth a book that was called the Book of the Law in 1904. And this book declared that the slain and risen God, i.e. Jesus, had stepped off the throne, and that a new God, the crowned and conquering child, was taking his place.
Crowley's most renowned work, and one whose composition is worth understanding in the context of our study. While visiting Egypt in 1904, Crowley's first wife, Rose, began going into spontaneous trances, muttering things like, "They are waiting for you," and "He who was waiting was Horus." Intrigued, Crowley and Rose went to visit the Cairo Museum. From a distance she spied a glass case and exclaimed, there he is." Upon inspection, the case did contain an image of Horus painted on a wooden stele, but what particularly stunned Crowley was its exhibit number, 666, his number, the number of the beast. Convinced now that something supernatural was happening, Crowley went back to his hotel and performed a ritual, summoning this higher power. Over 3 successive days, beginning on April 8th, the book was channeled through Crowley while in a trance. And the content of this revelation? "I am the snake that giveth knowledge," the Spirit said. "To worship me take wine and strange drugs, whereof I will tell my prophet." Falling on precisely the wrong side of the Bible's account concerning the fall of man and Satan's role, this snake spirit begins the revelation by telling man that he is a god, that reality is essentially an illusion, sin a myth, and that ethically there's no greater commandment than the law of Thelema, Greek for will, as famously stated in the 40th verse of chapter 1. "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." Marilyn Manson noted the universality of this satanic ethic when he observed, The idea of Antichrist is an unspoken knowledge that every person has. It's just the acceptance of yourself as a powerful being who can make their own decisions. It's not someone with a 666 on their head. And Satanism is about worshiping yourself because you are responsible for your own good and evil. What would you define being a Satanist as?
Worship of themselves. You're worshiping yourself when you worship Satan.
Aleister Crowley stated it this way in his infamous Book of the Law. Every man and every woman is a star or a god.
I am, we are stardust.
Yes.
What does that mean?
For me, the most astonishing fact is that the molecules that comprise our body are traceable to the crucibles of the centers of stars that manufactured these elements from lighter versions of themselves and then exploded, scattering this enrichment across the galaxy into gas clouds that would later collapse to form next-generation star systems. One of those star systems was ours. These atoms and molecules are in us because, in fact, the universe is in us. And we are not only figuratively, but literally stardust.
As you can see, the deception runs deep throughout science. Satan has infiltrated science. He's infiltrated the government, the military. They are keeping the secret of our world, the entire universe, the Big Bang universe lie, has been a massive deception. We can clearly see that everything is leading to the spirituality of Satanism. Satanism is nothing more than believing in yourself, is saying no to God and doing what you will, doing what you want. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. This is what we see with the alien, the UFO deception. In an enclosed world created special and unique, planets, entire galaxies have all been a lie. Space has been constructed by Satan. Dark, void, black. This is the flat earth truth of the UFO alien deception. NASA, the military, government, scientism has all been lies. They're all leading mankind to a pinnacle, to a point in history where there will be contact, where the answers will become clear. Don't fall for the deception. Don't be deceived. This is an evil, evil system being set up, has been set up for years. The entire Big Bang universe constructed is nothing more than lies. The Bible is very clear that we were created unique, that the earth is stationary, it's motionless. The earth does not move, that everything, the sun, the moon, and the stars revolve around us. Look up in the sky. Don't listen to what you've been told. Whether it's spinning the globe in your classroom, go out, look with your own eyes, test things, put them through scientific experiments. The scientific method is to test. Don't fall for the deception. As you can see, Satan is behind the entire thing. Do not put your trust in man, but put your trust in God. God's ways are above man's. The wisdom of man is foolishness to God. Repent. Turn from your ways. Turn to God. Ask Him for His truth. Ask Him for the truth of His Son, Jesus Christ. I pray that God touches you with His Spirit, that you wake up, you become a child of God, and you're refreshed, and you repent, and you're born again. Don't fall for the alien, UFO deceptions. There is no other planets. There is no other life. There is one other life form, and it's the fallen ones, the Nephilim. the fallen angels, Lucifer, minions, whatever you want to call them, there's only one. They have many forms, many shapes, and they're not extraterrestrial, they're extra-dimensional. They reside with man in another realm. Satan walks to and fro the earth looking who he can devour. This is a spiritual battle. Put on the spiritual armor of God. Read the Word of God. Ask God to give you His wisdom, His strength. We are in a war. We're in a war for truth. We're in a war, and we must fight as soldiers. But our war is spiritual. Our war is on our knees, praying, exposing, letting people know the lies of this world. Don't listen to people when they say the Bible is just a book written by man. The Bible is so much more. You want to discredit it. You want to discredit religion. Religion is man-made, but God and true worship. True worshipers will worship in spirit and in truth. These are words from the Bible. Read the Bible. Get to know God. Talk to Him. He will save you from the deception that's coming into this world. He will save you from the lies of evolution and the Big Bang and everything you've been taught about your very existence. Wake up.